Compared to the classic and X series which came before it, the Mega Man Zero games are very different from its predecessors. Instead of focusing on a villain who always manages to come back, the series has an overarching narrative detailing the struggle of the Resistance, attempting to retake the world from the tyranny of Neo Arcadia, and finding a way for humans and Reploids to coexist on top of the struggles of the very little energy that's left in the world. This is shown through the eyes of Zero, one of the main characters of the X series prior, who is forced to wake up by the human scientist CL and is guided by the soul of his best friend, Mega Man X, each game showing the steps the three of them make to the next new world, and how it all begins from zero. Zero. X is the large driving force for the Mega Man Zero series. Dr. Light's greatest invention from 200 years ago, X has the ability to think and feel like humans do. Because of this amazing ability, X's data would go on to create the Reploids upon being discovered 100 years before Mega Man Zero. X seeks only to unify both Reploids and humans in peace, doing whatever he can to achieve that goal, including fighting if needs be, despite being a pacifist. A veteran of the Elf Wars, an event which took place a century before Mega Man Zero, X had resorted to using his body to seal a great evil, becoming a cyber elf in the process. His sense of justice is not hampered, however, and lends his help to the Resistance in whatever way he can.
私にとってはあなたはもうゼロなのよ。
CL is a talented scientist who, unlike our other two protagonists, is human rather than machine. Like Mega Man X and Dr. Light before the both of them, CL harbours a desire of seeing peace between humans and Reploids. Once living in Neo Arcadia, as was the case for every human, CL began to see the horrors Reploids would face due to the energy crisis. Because of this, CL steps up, gathering as many Reploids as she can and escaping Neo Arcadia to form the Resistance to counter the terror. Fighting a losing battle at first, CL doesn't lose hope, hoping the laboratory she's seeking will have the answers she needs to counter Neo Arcadia. Zero, the titular character and Dr. Wily's greatest creation, who was sealed away for his violent nature. Upon awakening, he went on a murderous rampage until encountering Sigma. During their fight, the Maverick virus leaked into both Zero and Sigma, which changed Zero's violent programming. From then on, Zero joined the Maverick Hunters, and him and X became best of friends, overcoming every challenge that came their way, such as the now Maverick Sigma, who instigated the Maverick Wars, the Eurasia Crisis, and the Elf Wars. After the Elf Wars and the knowledge of being the source of the Maverick virus, as well as countless other tragedies, Zero seals himself away, entrusting the world to X before laying to rest. Upon being awakened a century later, Zero protects CL and fights his way through the onslaught of Neo-Arcadian forces. While briefly stopped by a golem, with the situation looking hopeless, a strange force urges Zero to save CL and hands him his old saber, which he uses to make short work of the golem. It is here that we find out Zero has amnesia due to how long he's been rested, remembering nothing from his past life. Despite this, Zero's nature remains, and upon CL's request, he begins to fight for the Resistance against Neo Arcadia and Mega Man X, as X has been unjustly destroying Reploids to give humans a better life. As he fights through their army, he encounters the four Guardians, fighting Fafnir, Fairy Leviathan, Hidden Phantom, and their leader, Sage Harpuya. Reploids formed from X's DNA who have an undying devotion to both their Master X and the humans of Neo Arcadia. The four of them all try and challenge the Resistance, going against Reploids despite being Reploids themselves. To try and stop this bloodshed, CL is attempting to research a new source of energy, as it means there will be no longer a need to destroy Reploids to save energy, doing what she can while Zero helps on the battlefield. After many a mission, the Resistance base falls under siege, and CL tells Zero that it's her fault for all of this. The Mega Man X CL speaks of is in fact not the original X. Instead, it is a copy that she created to serve as Neo Arcadia's leader after X's disappearance. Succeeding at first, when the energy crisis hit Neo Arcadia, Copy X began to destroy Reploids in order to decrease the consumption of energy. Because of this, CL took as many Reploids as she could and formed the Resistance to try and put a stop to this. CL carries this guilt for the entirety of Zero One, as she believes that it's her fault that countless Reploids are suffering, and that because of her, Zero was forced out of slumber, something she would apologise for since his awakening. though Zero never shows any signs of anger at this fact, continuing to fight and protect her as well as the other members of the Resistance. Zero then decides to launch a direct attack on Neo Arcadia. However, CL laments that there's no way they could get in due to the trans server being blocked. However, the same force from the beginning of the game returns and reveals himself to be the original Mega Man X. Unlocking the trans server port so Zero can get there with no issue, and requests Zero to destroy his copy. As Zero climbs up Neo Arcadia, he fights the 4 Guardians once more, their loyalty to X unmatched, to the point that one of them, Hidden Phantom, self-destructs to try and bring Zero down with him. Even that fails, however, and after their second defeat, they still try to stand in the way of Zero one more time. Only after Copy X tells them to stand down do they do so. X boasts that he was able to create a utopia for humans, something that Zero and the original X could never have done. But Zero tells him that a utopia built upon countless corpses is no utopia, and challenges the copy of X, who dons an ultimate armor just as the original X once did. Upon defeating his first form, Copy X transforms into a Seraphim Angel, ready to destroy Zero at all costs. Even this isn't enough, and upon the defeat of Copy X, Zero's memories begin to come back. While he still cannot remember much, he remarks that while the original X was a coward who always worried about everything, it was those exact qualities that made him to be what Copy X could never become: a hero. Copy X can't bear to hear it anymore, and he initiates a self-destruct sequence hoping to take Zero down with him in the process. Narrowly escaping from Neo Arcadia, Zero crashes into a wasteland where X shares his true emotions with his old friend. Years of fighting without Zero beside him made X resent the fight. There was nothing left for him to do, and he couldn't even enjoy himself. He asks his old friend to let him rest for a while, entrusting the world to him for the time being, which Zero agrees to do so. 01 ends with a major blow to Neo Arcadia's army. The Resistance was originally fighting a losing battle, however the awakening of Zero had begun to give everyone, especially CL, hope that their fighting might actually have a result. With Copy X's defeat being the first major victory for the Resistance as they look for the future, where they hope this endless fight will someday end. During the events near to Copy X's destruction, a Reploid by the serial number of TK31 stumbles onto old records of many things. The Maverick Wars of old, an entity called the Dark Elf, and the first class criminal Dr. Vile. He also stumbles on the catastrophic events known as the Elf Wars, as well as Project El Piso. Harpuya tells him to forget what he has heard, and in time he is dubbed a Maverick. But before he can be tried for treason, Neo Arcadia is attacked, and in the ensuing chaos, TK31 takes that opportunity to escape with another Reploid. The two Reploids talk of joining the Resistance, but before that, TK31 tries to steal the Baby Elves, copies of the Dark Elf who have many similar powers to her. However, he is only able to liberate just one, and before joining the Resistance, he ditches his old serial number and takes on the new name of El Piso. El Piso helps the now homeless Resistance to build a far more advanced base than before, and gives CL one of the Baby Elves for research. Because of his actions, El Piso is appointed as the new commander of the Resistance, and begins to plan an all-out attack on Neo Arcadia by the name of Operation Righteous Strike. However, CL protests, as she is now able to focus more on developing a new energy source, because now she doesn't need to focus on leading the Resistance, as well as Copy X's destruction, meaning that attacks from Neo Arcadia have become a lot less frequent. She believes that the issue can be resolved peacefully, and if she is just given enough time to finish the new energy source and solve Neo Arcadia's energy crisis, there would be no need for any more bloodshed. El Piso understands her plea. However, CL is now put on the clock, as if she doesn't finish the new energy source in time, El Piso will go ahead with Operation Righteous Strike. It's been a year since Zero went his own way from the Resistance. His endless fight against Neo Arcadia's army in the desert has worn him down over time, his body having many signs of wear and tear. But over the year that's passed, Zero's memory had begun to return over time, as well as his old self. Drifting without purpose for a long time, he believes that his answers might lie with the CL and the Resistance, and thus he begins his fight through another onslaught to get to them. He breaks through, but unfortunately his exhaustion catches up with him and he collapses in the desert. His body is found by Harpuya, who now leads Neo Arcadia in the wake of X's death, and in a surprising act of mercy, he takes Zero to the Resistance's brand new base. Waking up to familiar faces, CL tells Zero about what had happened in the missing year. She informs him of the Resistance's brand new base and her full focus on stopping the energy crisis. El Piso, however, has other ideas. He tells Zero of Operation Righteous Strike and requests his assistance in performing some guerrilla attacks on Neo Arcadia in order to prepare. Zero accepts, and unlike the missions he was performing earlier for CL, these missions involve dealing direct blows to Neo Arcadia. One of these operations involves travelling to the Forest of Desis. Upon defeating the boss, Zero finds the other baby elf and reunites with X. X can no longer rest due to the baby elves being unleashed upon the world, for he knows that the Dark Elf which he sealed away long ago will be unleashed very soon after. Zero keeps this worry in mind as he performs the other guerrilla operations, eventually dealing enough blows to Neo Arcadia that El Piso initiates Operation Righteous Strike. CL protests, saying that will only cause more needless bloodshed, and that she's almost ready to help Neo Arcadia with her energy source. El Piso reassures her that this, however, is the right course of action, and engages Neo Arcadia. Believing this to be his moment of triumph, El Piso departs to assist the Resistance, and Zero follows soon after. Compared to Zero's solo attack a year prior, Operation Righteous Strike is a resounding failure. The halls of Neo Arcadia are littered with bodies of the once confident Resistance troops. As Zero fights his way through, he comes face to face with the remaining 3 Guardians and the defeated El Piso at their feet. The Guardians gloat that because Zero took so long, they had to kill every other troop that attacked them in boredom. But before Zero is able to avenge them, they reveal the incoming bombardment of the Resistance base. Rushing back with El Piso in tow, Zero instantly gets ready to board the ship. However, CL interjects, knowing that they'll need her expertise if they are able to disarm the bomb. For the first time in the series, Zero and CL team up to disarm the missile and destroy Neo Arcadia's ship. However, when they return, El Piso is gone. His shame over Operation Righteous Strike broke him mentally. Departing from the resistance after leaving the message naming Ciel acting commander, and showing that El Piso curses his weakness, he vows to become the most powerful Reploid before destroying Neo Arcadia and all the humans, leading Zero on a chase after him to bring him back to base. Zero's chase first leads him to the Forest of Notus, finding El Piso instantly, who reveals his true motives. In a twisted sense of justice and in order to make it up to Ciel, El Piso seeks to break the seal and unleash the Dark Elf with the Baby Elf's power. To do this, he first goes into the Forest of Notus to grab the key for breaking the seal. Zero follows, however he is distracted by the Guardian of the Forest long enough for El Piso to subdue X and take the key to breaking the seal of Neo Arcadia. Proceeding to Neo Arcadia's computer facility, Leviathan decides to play around with Zero once again, much to their detriment. Leviathan's desire to battle once again gave El Piso the opportunity to extract code to reach Neo Arcadia's highest level, which Ciel rightfully guesses is where the Dark Elf is sealed. Tracking El Piso to the wreckage of the bombardment ship that Zero and Ciel worked together to destroy, it's revealed that El Piso took a secret code from the wreckage. But before we can give further pursuit, El Piso escapes once more, leaving Harpooya to challenge Zero once again. Upon defeat, Harpooya speaks of his enjoyment of fighting Zero, something that Leviathan too mentioned. Upon returning to base, Ciel reveals the code El Piso took was actually a means of sneaking into Neo Arcadia undetected, leaving only the shuttle factory left to investigate, with Fafnir awaiting us. Upon his defeat and return to base, we learn that El Piso's goal was to steal a trans server to send himself to Neo Arcadia, and at that moment, it was far too late. Reveals himself to be in the core of Neo Arcadia where the Dark Elf rests. Seeking the ultimate power, X does his best to stop him, but alas his powers as a cyber elf cannot manage. He begs Zero to stop him and Zero agrees, beginning the gauntlet once more through Neo Arcadia. Facing Fafnir and Leviathan, who are confident enough that Harpooya will be able to best El Piso, they used their time instead to fight Zero, transforming into stronger forms called the Armed Phenomenons. Yet despite that power, they are both no match for Zero. When Zero reaches Harpooya, however, that is far from the case. El Piso stands above a bested Harpooya with the Dark Elf behind him. He states how it's a perfect cyber elf that can give him true power. But there's only one thing he must do first. He must destroy X's body, as this is the seal for the rest of the Dark Elf. Harpooya tries to interject, but he is quickly silenced by El Piso, who leaves, allowing the baby elves to corrupt Harpooya, who begs Zero to stop him before being forced to fight. Laying defeated, Harpooya begs Zero to protect X, to which he agrees, and in contrast to Zero 1, Zero 2's finale begins not by needing to kill X, but to save him. Zero heads to Yeet the Seal, the location in Neo Arcadia's center where X's body rests, the Dark Elf sealed within. El Piso's plan has begun, however. Bringing back fallen Reploids in order to stall Zero, these Reploids are under control of the Dark Elf, showing an uncharacteristic loyalty to El Piso. Finally, at the peak, El Piso once again gloats to Zero of his power, stunning the hero in place as he helplessly watches the body of his best friend be destroyed. With this, the Dark Elf is finally released onto the world once more, and El Piso revels in this opportunity to use her powers to create a world only for Reploids, something long ago Zero once dubbed a fantasy. However, despite all that power, it still isn't enough to defeat Zero, and even after taking as much power as he can within himself, El Piso is defeated. In a moment of clarity, El Piso thanks Zero for stopping him before he could do something unforgivable. He laments on his weakness and believes that this lesson made him somewhat stronger. With an apology to Ciel, El Piso resigns himself to his wounds. But before he dies, the Dark Elf glows a warm light and uses her power to turn El Piso into a cyber elf in an act of mercy. With a declaration of the Dark Elf's innocence, El Piso bids Zero goodbye before flying away. Zero then looks up to see the Dark Elf, who utters his name before flying away as well. Zero ponders on what that encounter just meant, before X appears and tells Zero that once, the Dark Elf wasn't pure evil. She was once a benevolent being called the Mother Elf, until someone called Vile corrupted her, and used her to ravage the world in the Elf Wars. Zero 2 ending with Zero looking up at the sky, wondering what it could all mean. Zero 2 shows the resistance growing from Copy X's defeat, such as Ciel's more active role in both the development of the energy source as well as disarming the ship. Yet, the scars of a battle from so long ago are as prominent as ever, with El Piso's pursuit of the Dark Elf to destroy Neo Arcadia proof of that. Will peace be attained, or will this endless fight simply go on? Two months had passed since the El Piso incident. Tension seemed to be at an all-time low. The fighting had stopped and Ciel had finally completed her energy system, aptly named the Ciel system. She had sent information about it to Huapuya, with hopes that it would end the energy crisis. Peace seemed imminent, but before this is able to happen, Zero and Ciel go to investigate a derelict spacecraft which had been given strange readings, similar to the Dark Elf. Zero goes on ahead to investigate the craft. Meeting Harpuya once again, he tells him to leave as Neo Arcadia had sanctioned this area off. However, he makes sure that Ciel and the soldiers aren't harmed by the security troops. Zero, however, can't leave. He hears something call out to him, and he ponders on why the Dark Elf as well called out to him in that incident 2 months ago. As he goes deeper into the craft, he finds Fafnir and Leviathan being defeated by a mysterious new robot called Omega. Zero wastes no time in defeating Omega, but before he and Harpuya can deal the finishing blow, Harpuya is forced to kneel as Copy X returns. However, this Copy X is different, with a distinguishable stutter and a more loyal attitude to his saviour, Dr. Vile. A scientist who was banished from Neo Arcadia 100 years ago had returned, feigning innocent and a lesson learnt. X urges Harpuya to keep searching for the Dark Elf, despite Harpuya's protests. Forced to obey, Harpuya returns to base with X, Vile, and Omega, with Vile asking the question of how well Zero will do with that body. As Zero returns to base, Ciel is afraid once more. She doesn't know what to do, however with some motivation from the rest of the Resistance as well as Zero, she focuses, making sure that priority number 1 is getting the Dark Elf before Neo Arcadia can. With Surveyor giving Zero some new weapons and a request to take care of Ciel, Zero is once again back on the field, with his objective to search for the Dark Elf and launch some guerrilla attacks on Neo Arcadia once more. Zero begins to fight Vile's numbers, once the 8 gentle judges and counsellors of Neo Arcadia, brainwashed by Dr. Vile to serve his means. During one of these attacks, Zero finds the baby elves once more, who Dr. Vile manipulates, saying that he is technically their grandfather, and painting Zero as a being of evil before returning to Neo Arcadia once more. As this happens, Harpuya once again protests to Copy X, questioning why Dr. Vile was allowed back into Neo Arcadia despite his heinous actions. X speaks of Vile's innocence however, and Vile confirms his innocence. Because of Harpuya's protests, the Guardians are demoted of their role as commanders, and instead, control over Neo Arcadia's armies is given to Vile, who tells X that he has found the Dark Elf and launches a missile containing Omega to a residential area. This prompts Zero to go after them and stop the missile crash, a mission that sadly ends in failure. Omega and the Dark Elf meet, fusing together to take a new form and power. Harpuya, disgusted at the endangerment of humans, decides to attack Omega, a futile effort however as he is quickly defeated, rescued by Zero in the nick of time before Omega can deal the final blow. Omega and the Dark Elf are now in Neo Arcadia's possession, and if things couldn't get worse, Dr. Vile and Copy X contact the Resistance, asking Ciel to give up the CL system, as it would bring peace and doing so would acquit the Resistance of their maverick status. However, Ciel stands against Neo Arcadia, unwilling to give her work to people she cannot trust. This prompts Neo Arcadia to launch a full offensive against the Resistance once more. Asking if her actions were right, Zero reassures her that it was, and knowing what he must do, he goes off to fight his resurrected enemies once again, soon taking the fight to Copy X, just as he did over a year ago. Copy X asks Zero why he would serve an evil army, still believing his justice to be absolute. As he challenges Zero to another duel, and his last time fails, X begs Vile to use Omega to kill Zero. But instead of being greeted by Omega, he's instead greeted by the Cyber Elf of the original X, who tells his copy that Vile and Omega have departed from Neo Arcadia long ago. And, turns out, they had planned this. It turns out that the world didn't know of X's death in 01, so Vile orchestrated the trap of Copy X to make him explode when he would transform into his Seraphim form. He broadcasts it to the entirety of Neo Arcadia and frames the Resistance as extremist terrorists, invoking Ordinance 8 to take X's place as Neo Arcadia's leader, and using his new status as leader to funnel energy into the Dark Elf and Omega. The Resistance is put into a race against time, having to figure out where Vile is and what he's up to regarding Omega before his plans can come to fruition. As Zero takes out the rest of the 8 gentle judges, he's able to collect more information on the Elf Force as well. As the data is being recovered, Harpuya makes a full recovery, but he leaves. Despite him and the Resistance technically being allies, he must still protect the humans of Neo Arcadia. Zero is then called back to command, and we finally learn of the events that took place over a century ago. The Maverick Wars were thought to have no end, with Sigma always coming back from death and with him the threat of the Mavericks. Even with the method of new generation Reploids like Axel who could change their DNA and thus avoid the Maverick virus, things were still failing. This was until it was discovered that Zero was the source of the Maverick virus, offering both body and mind to solve the crisis. The research was a success, thus giving birth to the Mother Elf, who was able to quickly end the Maverick virus and destroy any trace of Sigma that was left. At this point in time, Dr. Vile proposed Project El Piso, using the Mother Elf and a Reploid to create a perfect ruler and end all war. However, X opposed it heavily, as it didn't feel like true peace as it was brought about by controlling Reploids. However, Vile disagreed, and he quickly corrupted the Mother Elf, turning her into the Dark Elf and thus created the Baby Elves along with it. In doing so, this created more Mavericks, which would allow sanction of Project El Piso, which eventually led to the creation of Omega, explaining how he was able to fuse with the Dark Elf. this led to the bloodiest period of history the world had yet seen, with 90% of Reploids and 60% of humans wiped out. In the final year of this 4-year conflict, Zero is able to return to the front lines, and together with X, they defeat Omega, who is banished into the Forbidden Ark, and is doomed to forever orbit the Earth. Vile, however, was forced to roam the wastes forever. This endless bloodshed and tragedy is what led Zero to seal himself and trust in the future to X. And now, Vile is attempting to repeat history. He uses Omega to begin his takeover and takes control of every Reploid in the world, including those in the Resistance base, save Zero. With Zero ready to fight and protect CL, he is thankfully unable to do so thanks to the intervention of X, who uses his power to save the Resistance and gives the location of Vile's lab. Zero plans to head there immediately and terminate Omega, which makes X hesitate, though he doesn't elaborate on why. As Zero proceeds through the lab, he finds one of the many doors that opens to cyberspace, a realm where Reploid souls and cyber elves reside, that was opened by Omega's return. Within that door, Zero finds an old enemy, Hidden Phantom. Given an opportunity to talk to the true X, Phantom challenges Zero, now knowing the absolute truth of everything. Though even that can't help him win. With another cryptic message to show Omega what that body can do, Phantom departs as him and X have one final duty to do. Zero continues his way through the lab and is forced to fight and slay the baby elves, leaving one last foe in his way, Omega. As Zero fights his way through Vile's numbers, the Guardians too make their way through Vile's lab, their vow to protect humans reinvigorated by the words of X and Phantom, as they head to provide Zero the backup he may need. Zero confronts Omega at his most powerful, with their titanic battle making Omega have to transform into a form that looks like him, Zero, and X. Eventually, their titanic battle breaks the very ground they stand on. As they land in a place that is very familiar, the lab where Zero awoke at the start of the first game. And with that, Vile reveals Omega's ultimate form. Vile constructed Omega, he took the original body of Zero due to its immunity to the virus. And Omega's body this entire time is Zero. The body that Zero's been in for the entirety of the Zero series and the end of the Elf Wars was in fact a perfect replica made for him to combat Omega in the final days of the Elf Wars. And with this revelation, Vile sixths Omega onto Zero, hoping to wake this fake from his century-long dream. In an arena with visages of X and Zero, two Zeros stand. Omega, the original body of Zero and what Zero was meant to be. A violent god of destruction who was to bring the world to ruin. And opposite him the fake, the Zero that fought against injustice and sought peace alongside his friends, believing in his allies and wishing to protect the world. The soul of the man who wishes to make the world a better place. And in the end, the soul wins out. As Omega lays defeated, the Dark Elf swiftly heals him back to full strength. Zero hesitates, not knowing what to do, before the Guardians arrive to subdue Omega once again and give Zero some words of encouragement. X2 arrives, and he tells Zero that even if his body is fake, his soul is the real deal. And that's all he needs to be Zero. With a renewed confidence and knowing what he truly is, Zero puts Omega and his past to rest. As Zero lays unconscious, X reveals an unfortunate truth. His power is fading, and his soul must now return to cyberspace. In a reversal of what happened a century ago, X entrusts the world to Zero as he fades away, Dr. Light's final creation finally getting the rest he deserves. Zero wakes up. Ciel, Surveyor, and other resistant troops waiting by his side. The Mother Elf in the sky being the one who saved Zero and brought him back to the resistance base. As the soldiers cheer, Zero and Ciel share a heart-to-heart. No matter what may happen, no matter what may befall him, as Ciel said when they first met, he is Zero. With Zero free comes the end of the scars that once affected Zero and Ciel. Omega, the Dark Elf, and Copy X are all gone, so too are the bodies of X and Zero. From now on, Zero and Ciel aren't fighting the scars of their past anymore, but are now fighting for the future and the world that lies ahead. After Copy X's death, Neo Arcadia had taken a turn for the worst. Originally it was just Reploids who were targeted, but now anyone who opposes Vile would be terminated. This forces humans to try and escape, with only one settlement in sight. Area Zero, a site very important to Mega Man as it's where the Erasure crash from X5 happened, and the place where Zero perished for the second time. After a century, nature began to retake the land once more, becoming the only sanctuary for humans apart from Neo Arcadia, but Vile would not allow it. He dispatched his troops after a group of humans, and they are only saved by the timely intervention of the Resistance. For the first time in the series, Zero talks with another human, a journalist from Neo Arcadia called Nij. Knowing of Ciel and Zero's actions in the Resistance, but also knowing that a lot of humans won't hold them in a positive light. Unfortunately, Vile's plan worked, and humans blamed the Resistance for X's death, and as a result, Neo Arcadia's subjugation. Nij departs, with Ciel in shock that humans thought this of the Resistance. Nonetheless, he still believes that helping the caravan is the right move to take, and Zero heads to Area Zero. Area Zero is a luscious, nature-filled location, one untouched by the abundance of warfare that has plagued the series. As Zero goes further into its beauty, he finds a Reploid and Vile's scheme. Using the space station Ragnarok, Vile plans to destroy Area Zero so that the humans would have no choice but to remain in Neo Arcadia under his rule. To do this, he employs the 8 Einenjahr warriors and their leader, the enigmatic Kraft. In disbelief at Vile's cruelty, Ciel goes to warn Area Zero, despite Nij's prior warning of their hostility. Nij, however, was right. They are tired of all the wars caused by the Reploids and people like Ciel, and they vow to protect Area Zero by themselves. And though Ciel protests that won't work, Zero knows talking is futile, and returns to the trailer, knowing that the enemy will be making their move very soon. As Zero goes to combat the 8 Einenjahr, the warriors reveal something interesting. Compared to the other bosses in the series, these Reploids are not all loyal to Vile. Since they were Neo Arcadia, some of them have personal vendettas against Zero, such as Tech Kraken, who served under Hidden Phantom when he was still alive. But the fighting has taken a toll on Ciel. She's grown tired and appalled at Vile's cruelty and upset that, even after so long, these fights are still necessary. Area Zero is then located and assaulted by Vile's army, and Zero goes to their aid, with the humans remaining ungrateful despite his heroism. Despite that, a shard thanks Zero, and he soon realizes Nij isn't among one of the people he rescued. Finding Kraft tells Zero that he isn't acting out of evil. Vile holds a monopoly on all the energy in Neo Arcadia, and since Ciel and the Resistance are the only ones who have the Ciel system, he's forced to work under Vile if he is ever to continue living. Their fight is broken up by Nij, who says they're both fighting for the same thing, and humans are unfortunately caught in the crossfire once again. She laments on what Kraft used to be, and Kraft responds by kidnapping her. The settlement accuses Niche of being with Neo Arcadia and refused to help her, disgusting Zero as Niche had been working tirelessly to help them from the beginning. Zero departs to go rescue Niche, despite what the human says. Upon rescue, Niche thanks Zero, yet he still wants to speak to Kraft. The two had a history together, a romantic one at that, something that was unheard of until now. Kraft only serves Vile to protect Niche, as he wants to be with her even if it means the only way that can happen can be under Vile's rule. However, Niche can't abide by that, as he sees it as an injustice before being interrupted by Dr. Vile himself. Vile doesn't care either way. He tells Zero that Ragnarok is inevitable and goads Zero into killing him, knowing that he can't because he's human. But before they can come to blows, Niche uses a flashbang to blind Kraft and Vile before escaping. Kraft reflecting on how facing a death with dignity is better than a living death. Niche is rescued and the settlement apologizes for betraying her. Zero then proceeds to fight the other 4 Einenhjar warriors. Thinking that Ragnarok is now inoperable, Vile contacts the Resistance, revealing that the 8 warriors were merely a distraction to the completion of the Ragnarok space station. Ready to watch them die, Vile gloats until Kraft interrupts him. He had severed the remote control system in Ragnarok and is pointing the cannon straight at Vile and Neo Arcadia. Tired of being Vile's lapdog and swayed by Niche's words prior, he is planning to attack Neo Arcadia with Ragnarok's laser. However, this attack will also harm the innocent Reploids and humans, so CL dispatches the rest of the Resistance to assist in Neo Arcadia in evacuation. And Zero goes to Ragnarok to confront Kraft, rushing straight to him, but before he can make it to Kraft, as Zero confronts Kraft, Kraft reveals that he doesn't care what the world thinks of him now, but as long as the world changes, he will do what he has to do. But Zero responds with something interesting. He knows that him and Kraft weren't made to make a change. They were Reploids who were made for war, and the only people who can truly make a change are the humans like CL and Niche who believe in peace. The purpose of Reploids like him and Kraft are to help them achieve that goal. X's belief in harmony between humans and Reploids, as well as the promise Zero made to him, allows him to believe in the people that X too believed in. And as Kraft hears this, he's filled with regret. As he lays dying, he asks Zero not to bring him back. He feels like he can no longer face Niche anymore out of guilt, and with that comes the end of Kraft. Zero returns, but before they can celebrate their Pyrrhic victory, Ragnarok fires again. Despite Vile and Kraft gone, Ragnarok is still operable, firing one burst of energy before heading on a violent crash course directed at Area Zero. Zero and CL make their move quickly, having to take apart Ragnarok's system in order to even get close enough to stop the core and the collision. After bypassing the protection and opening the teleportation circuit, the time had finally come for the Ragnarok core. Though worry fills CL's heart, he tells Zero to come back safely as he departs to Ragnarok, the true end now in sight. After fighting through the resurrected Einenhjar, Zero arrives at the core, finding the culprit of the descent, Vile. After the end of the Elf Wars, as well as in exile, Vile was forced into an undying cybernetic body as punishment. He once again wonders if Zero can kill him due to being a human, and fuses with the core of Ragnarok before challenging Zero, believing that the world can only live under his rule, and his rule only. The fight destroys the room, Earth in view as Ragnarok makes its final descent. CL warns Zero that Zero has to come back now, or else he won't be able to do anything about it. But before he does, Vile comes back and fuses with Ragnarok further. But Zero knows that if he can destroy Vile in the core, the explosion will cause a chain reaction taking Ragnarok with it. CL begging Zero to return, as Vile protests too, believing that Zero couldn't strike down a hero as no human could ever do that, to which Zero replies with his true beliefs.
この痛みは貴様にわかるか。俺は正義の味方でもなければ自分を英雄と名乗った覚えもない。俺はただ自分が信じる者のために戦ってきた。俺は悩まない。目の前に敵が現れたなら叩き切るまでだ。俺を信じろ。
With CL's screams of agony, Zero's final fight begins. An act that no other Reploid, nay, protagonist in the Mega Man series has done prior. Zero fights and kills a human. Zero's history was seeped in bloodshed, built and used as a tool of destruction. But the new world has no place for fighters as him, so he supports CL one final time by destroying Vile, to which he succeeds. The mission was a success. As everyone in Area Zero looks up to the sky, everyone laments the loss of Zero. Yet, CL remains hopeful that someday, Zero will come back, before going on her own to watch the pieces of Ragnarok fall. The song that plays, Freezer, is CL's emotions finally given word. Everything she wished she told Zero, wondering that, is this the future she even wished for? But by the end, ZL stands up and she knows what she must do. She tells Zero that she'll make sure his faith in her wasn't misplaced, and she tells him she's going to make a better world. One full of the harmony both Zero and X fought so hard to achieve, and hopes that one day, Zero will return. She believes that one day, he will. From the beginning of Mega Man Zero, the future has always been something that's been a very large topic. The entire series began because X started terminating Reploids in order to preserve energy for the humans, and CL sought to find a peaceful measure but also to fight back against Neo Arcady's tyranny. As well, in 0203, the game is spent destroying scars of the past, such as the Elf Wars, the Dark Elf, and Dr. Vile's influence. However, as well as the future being a very strong part, another part is belief in each other. Zero goes out saying that he fights for the people he believes in, and X and CL also state that they believe in Zero. CL believes that Zero one day will return, and X believes that Zero can take care of the world as Zero entrusted to him a century ago. Through Zero's belief, he was willing to lay down his life, something he had only done before for X. And both times, he was proven right. He believed X could become stronger than him in X1, and X ended up defeating Sigma. And in 04, CL is able to start creating the Utopia, as 2 months after the end of 04, the humans and Reploids began to coexist peacefully in Area Zero. All thanks to Zero's sacrifice, people like CL, Nij, Alouette, and Surveyo are given a chance at peace and an opportunity for harmony. All beginning from Zero.